Good evening and welcome everyone. We are so thrilled that you're with us this evening. I'm Marilee McFarland, the Senior Director of Principia Alumni and Field Relations. The music you are hearing is from alum Ian Case and was part of our virtual concert this past May. We're so grateful that you've joined us for this virtual talk on the January Book Club pick, New York Times bestseller, How I Built This by Guy Raz. At Principia School and College, there is a drive and support for student entrepreneurs and innovators at all levels. And we look forward, and as we look at our alumni family, we see incredible examples of entrepreneurship and innovation, which is why this book was a natural fit to kick off the new year. Tonight, we are thrilled that Principia School Dean of Innovation and Academics, Dr. Peter Dry, will share highlights and lessons from the book, and then dive into a discussion with successful alum and entrepreneur Reshma Chattaram Chamberlin, the co-founder and digital brand officer of Somersault. We are excited to have a front row seat to this conversation tonight. And I can tell you, before we opened up the event, they were having an amazing conversation about cricket. So who knows where we're headed in the discussion this evening. We have a few upcoming events that we hope that you will join us for. February will be jam-packed with events from a talk by Dr. Brian Roberts, a lecturer on this summer's Principia Lifelong Learning sailing trip on the Rhone and Saône rivers in France, entitled Brexit Endgame, the Future of UK and EU Relations. That talk will be on Tuesday, February 9th at both noon and 7 p.m. We are also excited to announce our February book club pick is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. This book discussion will be led by the book editor from the Christian Science Monitor, April Austin, on Tuesday, February 23rd. That event is part of the Monitor Night Live Week hosted by Principia College. The week will begin with the book talk and culminate with Monitor Night Live on Thursday, February 25th. Join us as we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Monitor Night Live with the Monitor editor, Mark Sappenfield, and correspondents from around the world. You can find out more about these events and lots more events that we have coming up at principia.edu/events. We'll put that link in the chat box as well. During the talk this evening, you're welcome to share your thoughts and your feedback in the chat box and submit any questions that you have for Peter and Reshma in the Q&A box. Feel free to submit them throughout the event tonight. My colleague Robbie Butler, Principia's Leadership Gift Officer, will be moderating the Q&A following Peter and Reshma's discussion. Today's talk is being recorded and will be posted tomorrow on our virtual events webpage. You can also find the recordings of all of the concerts and talks over the last 9 months. We will post that link in the chat box as well. Now, before I turn the screen over, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Peter Dry. Peter is the Dean of Innovation and Academics at Principia School, and he is responsible for developing and equipping Principia's teaching team with the tools to incorporate student-led discovery and authentic learning across all school levels. He also has emphasized the development of entrepreneurial thinking and intellectual and emotional resilience into the school culture. Peter has built a school-wide culture that values a student-centered approach to learning and a desire to prepare students for an ever-changing world. Dr. Dry received his bachelor's degree from the University of Natal, South Africa, a master's from the University of Southern Queensland in Australia, and a doctorate in education from Capella University. So he has a worldwide education, and we're thrilled that he is here to lead us in this conversation tonight. So I turn the screen over to you.
Thank you very much. It is really a wonderful honor to be invited to speak to everybody, 172 participants. So that really is an amazing group of people sharing, hopefully, with you what will be a wonderful hour. I know that just my initial conversation with Reshma was just fantastic, and I'm eager to get into it. and talk about her role as an innovator, as an entrepreneur, as a businesswoman. So many things to unpack. But first and foremost, let me talk about where we are in terms of Principia, where we are in terms of the school. And in my role as the assistant head of school, I look after strategy and innovation. And what that means is that I see it in terms of kind of three buckets. I see my role as a visionary, my role as an architect, and my role as a project manager. And all of this encompasses my strategy towards creating a culture for innovation. And when I say a culture for innovation, I'm not talking about a culture of innovation. I'm talking about a culture that develops and nurtures the opportunity for everybody to be involved in coming up with new ideas, taking on new challenges, and having the bravery, knowing that people have got their back, to really challenge the status quo. And I believe that's so important right now is because schools are outdated. Schools are completely and utterly outdated. And I have this inner desire that pushes us forward, because I can't stand to see young people sitting in classrooms being educated for a world that's gone by. So it does take courage, it does take bravery, it does take an element of risk as we push forward to try and break some of the rules of schooling for the sake of our children. It's that straightforward for me. It's not that easy though, because we've been, we have this paradigm of what schooling ought to be. We've all been at school for 12 to 16 to maybe 20 years, even more than that for some of us. We're kind of successful. We've got a nice house. We've got jobs. Things are pretty darn good. School must have been all right. However, the world has changed dramatically. And if you think about it, if you think of Rip Van Winkle, so I would say Rip Van Winkle, but I'm South African. So let's go with Rip Van Winkle. He's the guy who fell asleep for 100 years, woke up and went down the hill back to his community. Now, imagine if that had happened now, and someone who'd fallen asleep 100 years woken up. The world has changed dramatically. Some things have stayed the same. I would argue that prisons, unfortunately, have stayed the same. I would argue that churches have pretty much stayed the same, and I would argue that schools have pretty much stayed the same. So while so much else would have been new for dear old Rip, schools probably would have looked the same. And that, to me, is a huge alarm bell. So my feeling is that there's an urgent need to change what we do in schools. And that's what I loved about, like, I don't know, it wasn't even the first page. It was before the first page. It's kind of in the prologue, where Guy Raz says this. I'm going to read it to you. He says, the entrepreneur is a person who strikes out on their own to reach these frontiers of progress. He sees these people as explorers, as adventurers. I love that metaphor. They're aware of the risks and the rewards of going it alone. They're driven to discover what might be found out there. They feel the call to make something out of what they find, something new, better, faster, more efficient, and to make it accessible to the rest of us in a way that we can use. It could be a product or a service or an idea that spurs its own kind of exploration, starting the cycle anew. And that's the kind of school that I want. That's the kind of culture that I've sought to provide for our people to learn and grow in, where they can seek to be that explorer, break the boundaries, and find something new, better, faster, more efficient, that better serves the needs of our students today. So that's the culture. And so that's why I love the book, because the book, to me, captured the mindset of not only the students that we would like to develop, but also our faculty. Because if our faculty don't have the entrepreneur mindset, then how the heck are our students going to be able to develop into that space? So it's so important. That's why professional development of and the growth of people's capacity to see beyond the current paradigm is so critically important. It's the culture for innovation that we need to create. So what have we done at Principia, and what have I done with other schools as I've moved around the globe to do this work? I think the number one thing is to really help people understand the why. And I call it future-proofing our school. And I would imagine that we need to, in the business world, need to future-proof our products. Working for BMW Financial Services, working for Telstra, which was Australia's largest telco company. There was a real drive. That was my job, was to create cultures for innovation, so there was more movement towards creating products that would be sustainable, that would last, that would still be attractive to customers in the midst of a changing world. So the work that I do at Prin is to say, hey, let's keep going back to the why of change. Why do we need to change the way we do schools? And I remember when I first arrived, I put up a slide that had like the ice cap melting, and we had AI, and we had biotechnology, we had robotics, and we had to really engage in this conversation about the why of change. Why are things now different for our students? We can't put them in these little greenhouses anymore. This thing has destroyed the greenhouse completely. Okay, so we can't ignore that. So let's keep attacking. What's this why of the change? And so now, of course, well, not now, but probably about 3 years ago, I put up a picture of President Trump. I'm not making a political statement, but I'm sure we would all agree that he was an extremely disruptive president. And it was so much easier to engage people in this notion of what change is and how rapidly it is coming at us. Of course, in the last year, I put up a picture of the coronavirus. I don't know, it's a kind of funny, fuzzy little orange thing. And because that's all people need now to understand the enormous rate of change. Now, we can't sit back and just watch the change because it's happening to us right now. Look at how we're having this meeting. It's fantastic. What a great result from the change. So we need to look at what kind of actions do we have to take in order to keep up with this change. Because the rate of change, I would argue, is faster than we as humans are actually able to adapt. So how do we create a community that's able to adapt quickly? Again, we have to create a culture for change where people feel that they can take risks and challenge the status quo, because education has plateaued. So it requires a breakthrough. Jobs in the new economy. If we think about the jobs in the economy, these are the ones that won't get automated, outsourced. Okay. Think about the work that Reshma's doing in terms of cutting out the middle person in all of this direct to consumer sales. Think about that as we start to move forward. The salesperson on the shop floor, what happens to them? This puts an enormous premium on certain skill sets and mindsets, all right? Creative, innovative skills, and being able to learn and adapt to be an entrepreneur. That's the kind of thing that we're looking for in our students. So how do we do this? How do we future-proof our schools? You need to be now the architect as the leader. We're creating a mindset I've spoken about. It's strengths-based. People are more innovative, more creative, more engaged when they're teaching, living, leading from a space of strengths. They need to know the why the change. And then we need to intentionally build that culture about risk-taking, collaboration, et cetera, et cetera. So this urgency needs to be, you can hear in my voice probably, isn't it? I'm not just talking fast, I've got no time, but we are moving along, talking about how do we increase the urgency, okay? The power of diversity is critical right now. Magnify the good and relentlessly tackle the status quo. So what do we do? The next step is then we the project managers. So at Prin, we've also got to say, okay, what does it now look like? What does future-proofing our school look like? Two key words now in a future-proof, a future-ready, and a school that's creating entrepreneurs: transfer and authenticity. We have to identify challenges in our curriculum that students can take on that are authentic and allow them to transfer it from the classroom to outside into what we term the real world. So when learning becomes applied to an authentic situation, that's when we're seeing this future-ready type of education occurring. So we are radically redesigning our curriculum to make sure that there are high levels of transfer and authenticity in our curriculum. That means the problem is authentic. It's a real problem. It's highly authentic. That means the audience is also authentic. So we're seeing our students presenting to people who are actually inside the real world, if you like. They are industry leaders. So they are acutely aware of what's going on, and our students are now presenting to them versus just to a teacher. So all of this, and I can give a whole lot of examples, but I don't have time. But this is the world that we are now living in. So reading this book where we're seeing people with this, you can see I've read the book, with this mindset of taking on challenges, of tackling the status quo, of identifying these big, exciting challenges and going for it. These are the kind of students that we are aiming to develop. So that's why I love the book, and that's where Principia is right now. Not only do we have entrepreneurial studies, we have a business game that all the students do in the middle school. They run businesses in the lower school, and every single student in the upper school has to take entrepreneurial studies now. That's how important that we are seeing this in our world right now. So, Robbie, is this the time when I turn it back over to you?
You got it, Peter. Thanks so much for wading in ever so slightly into the book. I think we'll have a little bit more as we go. So, to tell a brief story, 13 years ago, an incredible entrepreneur graduated from Principia College. At that time, Prin College had no systematic or structured way to teach students the skills of entrepreneurial thinking that would enable them to be successful. Now, the Center for Entrepreneurship at Prin College offers classes ranging from new venture creation to idea incubation and different concentrations within that business major that we've had for decades offer concentrations on entrepreneurship, which empower students to explore business ideas, not just the accounting, not just the finance, not just the marketing, but holistically, business. What do you need? We also bring in experts with their own successes to teach our students various elements of that entrepreneurial process to enable those students to start their own business and be successful. Speaking of experts, after graduating from Prin College in 2007, Reshma Chattaram Chamberlin founded 3 businesses, each with a wider scope and impact and scale. Her third business, the international swimwear and apparel brand Somersault, has raised $26 million through Series B funding. Reshma is such an incredible example of a Prin alum who used her work ethic and her perspicacity to excel in the business world. So please help me welcome to the stage Reshma Chattaram Chamberlain.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. And I know Peter and I are going to have a wonderful conversation. Robbie, thank you for that great introduction.
If you'd like to take it away, I'm sure we've got a
Well,
lot to talk about.
will do. Thank you so much. Reshma, you are a wonderful example of the kind of people that we are trying to nurture and develop in our schools. People who, thinking independently, you're a risk taker and you're willing to give things a go. Now, Reshma, your schooling was quite interesting. You attended KIS. I mean, it's over 100 years of international education. It's history. It's in the beautiful Palani Hills. Challenging education program, and they aim to really develop well-rounded, socially active global citizens. Tell us a little bit about your background and how your schooling maybe is the context for where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had the wonderful privilege of going to multiple international schools, Cody being the most, I think, important experience in exposing myself to we had 30 different nationalities and on a mountain up in India when we didn't have cell phones at that point. So it really changes the dynamic of how you interact with people from all over the world. We didn't have anything else to do but hang out and talk to each other, play a little basketball. It really changes your perception of people different from yourself. And I think what's so beautiful about that experience is it allowed me to open up my eyes on all the things that make us all so much similar than make us different. And I think that was just the most wonderful experience. And it gives you insight into humanity, into how people interact, what people care about. And I think that's an incredibly important foundational aspect of entrepreneurship is understanding and anticipating a need or a gap and understanding how people think or they shop or they interact with a product or a business.
And tell us a little bit, Reshma, about, you mentioned this diversity that was so much part of your background. How do you see that playing into your world now?
Well, absolutely. Our world is ever changing. America is a melting pot of people from all over the world. And when we think about our consumer, she looks completely varied, right? She looks like me. She looks like, everyone you can imagine. And when we think about diversity, diversity is at the foundation of Somersault, we really started the business to kind of go against the traditional idea of swimwear. Swimwear was an over-sexualized industry that was really crafted for, not for women, right? It was crafted by men to craft a narrative around what they thought women should be like and feel like. And so when we created Somersault, we really wanted to create a swimwear brand for women by women, for women to feel sexy on their own terms, to feel confident and joyful in the way in which they interacted with the world and water and the sea, and that childlike joy we all have when we put our toes in the sand, the salt in our hair. And that's why we really started Somersault, and we saw traction there.
And I love the work that you're doing to really disrupt the whole swimwear industry, and we'll get to that in a moment. A little bit more about your background. So I'm going to put you in on the hot spot here. If you were a school principal, obviously you've had a wonderful schooling experience. You have some hindsight now to see, wow, what are the skills and the attitudes that are needed in order to be successful in this ever-changing world. If you were the school principal, what would you change about schools? Maybe, and I'm putting college and university in this as well, to encourage students to be entrepreneurs. What would change?
I think a focus on grit. I think it's so easy to give up if you can't get something right, or you don't get the perfect grade, or you don't, you're not number one in a particular sport. To be completely honest, through 10th grade, I was sitting in the back of the class talking to the boys. If I'm completely honest, every report card said, Reshma talks too much in the back of the class. She should focus more, and not letting kind of that traditional kind of parameter of school define who you are. And I think teaching grit, teaching this idea of you can kind of move out of what you think you're conditioned to do. And I think that's really interesting. I almost failed math way too many times. I didn't do well till 10th grade. So I think that traditional schooling is definitely outdated, because it doesn't allow for children who think outside of the traditional norms, especially in Indian schooling. It's really interesting to think about kind of where schools can go. And I think teaching grit and perseverance, I would say, is the most important thing. And also focus on the arts. Honestly, I was an art student. I was an art major at Prinn College. I don't think I took a business class. I had to take an economics class, I think, to do the gen ed requirements that Prinn required. But I wanted to stay as far away from those classes as I possibly could, and thinking about entrepreneurship not from just the traditional business lens, but a focus on the arts, which are an incredible way to activate innovation and creativity and problem solving, but just from a different perspective.
That's a wonderful answer. And I love that your art has been a theme through your work as well, especially in your early days. I mean, this is very much part of what you did in the world of work.
Yep, absolutely. I went to Prinn for studio art, and I had a graphic design focus. And I really thought about, my mom is an artist. I thought about, how do I translate something I love to do, which is paint and draw and craft, into a career. So I was thinking very pragmatically, like, what should my major be? A fun story is that when I decided to be a graphic design major at Prinn College, I don't think I'd ever used a Mac before, or had ever used any of the programs, whether that was Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator. And it was all trial by fire, really trying to figure out what I do, how I do it, learn to do it. And art played an important role in that problem solving and discovery.
Wonderful. Yeah. And it shows the importance of giving young people a variety of experiences, because who knows what's going to happen. And I love that you didn't take any business, but it was your grit and your determination. So it's more your mindset that has got you to where you are now, probably.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is ambition. I think we shouldn't be afraid of that word. That's a word sometimes that people are scared to say out loud and own. I always used to say when I was small, I want to do these big things. I want to have a big office. I want to do all these things. I didn't really know exactly how I was going to get there. I had zero idea, but I knew I wanted that. So I think it's so interesting to think about the power of manifestation, and making sure that you're putting that out there and you're thinking about what you want, and then kind of putting those building blocks to get there. You might not know the direct route yet, but you're thinking about how you can potentially get there. One of those steps for me was saying, okay, I'm going to be a graphic design major. I had zero idea what that really meant, but it felt like a pragmatic thing to do with art and what I love to do. So just continuing to think about kind of how I put those building blocks in place to get where I was going.
And that's such a theme throughout the book, is this grit and the perseverance and the knockbacks and the ability to get back up again and go for it. And you've experienced so much of that in your world, I would imagine. But there's something that must get you back on your feet, that gets you out of bed in the morning. You know, we talk about it's your why, it's your deeper purpose. I mean, Guy Raz writes this, he says, the path to true entrepreneurial success is not strictly about profit. It's also about finding and fulfilling a deeper purpose. That has been the destination all along. Talk to me about what's your why? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Absolutely. I would say, before I answer what the why is, I think entrepreneurs have an innate sense of optimism, because if we did not, it would be very hard to get out of bed every morning, especially when you're dealing with incredible highs and incredible lows. And you really can't let anyone see kind of those incredible highs or incredible lows. And that's really, really important to think about, is just constant optimism and kind of, I wouldn't see a rose-colored view of the world, because you're actually always looking for problems and you're always looking on how you can fix things, but you are looking at the world optimistically and looking at how you can contribute to the world optimistically, I guess. And the why, I guess, is, it's amazing to think about how we can change someone's life one swimsuit at a time, and now, of course, through multiple other garments. And when we think about that, it seems like a crazy statement to make, but we get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of messages from women who say they haven't put on a swimsuit in 2 years. And when you think about that, how much fun do we have when we're interacting with the water and the lake and the beach? And you think about the women who are depriving themselves of this experience because of how incredibly difficult, awful, and cumbersome the swimwear shopping experience is. So we really wanted to change that narrative. And when we get those resounding emails over and over and over again saying, I have never felt better in a swimsuit. I had 2 babies in 2 years, and I just wasn't comfortable to put a swimsuit on. Or someone who's recovered from an eating disorder wanting to say, I've never felt so good in my body in a swimsuit. So those are the things we really get us out of bed every day. It sounds cheesy, but it is exactly true, is being able to change people's lives and give them a sense of joy, whether that's for 15 minutes or 2 hours or a trip when they're across the world and experiencing somersault. We're really providing and contributing to that sense of joy, which is just so, so exciting. And then the other piece of it is, as we build businesses of the future, we can't let sustainability be something that is at the back burner or not important. If we think about it, at a baseline, taking care of the place that we live is the most important thing that we can do. And we clearly always admit we are not perfect. There's no way any business trying to do good is perfect, but we continue to strive every day. So our swimwear is made out of recycled materials. Most of our garments are made out of eco-friendly or recycled materials. We have an amazing new activewear collection that's made all out of recycled plastic bottles and plastic bottle waste. So really thinking about how we can create better product that lasts longer using the waste that we're already creating in this world. That's what gets me out of bed every day, is that we're doing it the right way. Not the perfect way, but we're working towards doing it the right way.
And talk a little bit more then about, because some people might not be aware of, when we talk about you disrupting the industry, women feeling so much better and more confident because of the work that you've done, because of the way that you structure the business. Tell us a little bit more about why this is such a different, unique approach to, for example, specifically rather the swimwear industry.
Yeah, absolutely. My co-founder, Lori, is fantastic. She went to WashU here in St. Louis, and she had been designing and manufacturing swimwear for over 10 years. So she really understood kind of the importance of the fit of the garments. So she scanned over 10,000 women, and we have 1.5 million measurements from these 10,000 body scans. So it really allows us to create an incredibly optimal garment. And when we think about that experience, we're really creating something that hasn't been done before. women, all the women who are listening to this call, I know when you're shopping and you're buying swimwear, it's an incredibly emotional purchase. And so we wanted to create a product that helped women feel confident and enjoyable, but not just from kind of a surface marketing level. We wanted to do it truly from the construction of the garment. So we use those 10,000 women's body scans, 1.5 million measurements to really craft the perfect fit, and of course continue to iterate on that fit as we get feedback from our consumer, because she is at the center of what we do, and our goal is to make her happy.
And Guy Raz talks about the importance of research, the importance of knowing your market, building products that people will buy. You've done a lot of that work.
Yep. Absolutely. And what was amazing is Lori's previous background. We came into this business with so much intellectual property that allowed us to kind of have this leg up and create something that truly was innovative and disruptive. And the other side of it is, even on the marketing side, communicating to women like us in a way we want to be communicated to seems so logical, but is still very innovative in the swimwear space.
And you know, when you think about the swimwear space and you think that must be so overcrowded, you know, Reshma, you are crazy. Why would you be entering into this space? Did you get some of that?
Oh my gosh, Lori and I got that all the time. You know, I mean, constantly. When we first started raising money together, I'll just quickly share how Lori and I kind of got together. We bumped into each other at an event in New York City, and we've known each other from the entrepreneurial community in St. Louis. But she said, here's the deck, here's the line sheet. What do you think? And I said, what do you think about a co-founder? And as they say, the rest is kind of history. But as we went out to fundraise, we heard no over and over again. You know, when I tell some friends or some people, yeah, you know, I'm thinking of shutting down my agency that's quite successful for an agency, to kind of just start from scratch completely again. That was like the third or fourth time round. They were like, are you crazy? Like, what are you thinking? Like, the swimwear industry is so crowded. It's a difficult market. What are you going to do? But we started really thinking about the true gap in the market. And there was so much opportunity. Victoria's Secret had just left the swimwear market, leaving a $500 million market share just open. It was an industry that was growing year over year. And no one owning like a true direct-to-consumer relationship. There were lots of micro brands, but no one really owning that lane. And of course, we've since expanded outside of swimwear, which is really, really incredible, and seeing a lot of, you know, adoption. But Lori and I got no's over and over and over again from, I mean, hundreds of no's, you know, through the investment process, and even from, you know, people who really just didn't understand what we were doing till they saw what we actually ended up doing. So it was quite exciting and quite disheartening sometimes as well, but you have to persevere.
Tell us about, this may seem like an odd question, tell us about one of your failures, because, you know, that's something that we know that we fail at times, we make little mistakes, big mistakes. Where have you failed where you can give the budding entrepreneurs out into Zoom land this opportunity to go, oh, I'm not going to do that? Well,
you have to try, because if you don't try, you don't know. So I think I wouldn't call it a failure, but I would say it's not a business that succeeded. I launched an app called Museo. It was a photo curation app. I would say it was a precursor to Instagram stories and Snapchat. It was like kind of a mix, and blogging. It was like an interesting combination of that. Of course, very naively optimistic. I think entrepreneurs have to be. You can't go against Facebook and Instagram with $0 and never having raised money before. So it was an absolutely incredible learning experience, you know, how to build an app from scratch, how to think about PR, how to, you know, market it, how to look bigger than you are, how to think about maybe fundraising, all of those things that I'd never done before. So I don't count Museo as a failure, but I count it as like schooling in essence to get me where I'm going, where I've gotten so far and where I want to go. So I think if you fail at one endeavor or one business, that doesn't mean you can't do something else incredibly well. And I think that's a theme among all like entrepreneurs who do things over and over again. And they sometimes just have to hit the right product for the right audience at the right time. So it wasn't Museo's time, but I'm really grateful that I have the opportunity to do Somersault. And I didn't say, hey, I'm not an entrepreneur because Museo didn't work out. I was still one. I just hadn't found the right thing at the right time, and the right co-founder as well.
Yeah, I was out in Silicon Valley a few years ago, meeting up with an ex-student of mine who was a real problem child in school. Just wonderful kid with so many ideas and everything, but just didn't quite fit the line that most students would. But he created this fantastic app for students, and he went to Berlin, and then he went to Silicon Valley, and it kind of like failed. He got so many job offers from Google, from Yahoo. He's at Lyft at the moment.
Amazing.
Because of that, because they knew how much he'd learned.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's, it's emotional cost, it's dollar cost, it's time, but it all kind of adds up. And Lori and I often talk about, sometimes people look at Somersault and say, oh God, you guys grew so quickly, or you did these things so quickly. But we both stop and always talk about the fact that it took our whole careers to get to this point. There was many failures. There was many crazy moments before we got to the point where we felt like both our careers led us to this particular point, which is, of course, also still not without its challenges, but very exciting nonetheless.
And Reshma, it was wonderful to read on your website. Not only are you so passionate about changing the industry so it makes people feel better about themselves. When someone feels better about themselves, we know that's a ripple effect to their families, Absolutely. To their co-workers, to the whole community. You've spoken about the importance of diversity in your business. You've got a strong social justice, social responsibility line as well. And is that a reflection of you? Is it a reflection of being a millennial? Is it a reflection of where we live? Inspiring stuff. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's interesting because I think things can tend to like polarize people when you think about kind of being out there as a business. And we've done a very focused job of making sure we are human first. So we think about people and women first as kind of our initiatives, with not thinking about them in a political way. And that's been really amazing to focus on and really think through, what do we need to be in the world today? How can we be a positive force for change when it comes to diversity, when it comes to inclusion, when it comes to sustainability? All these things are all incredible initiatives. So we really focus on that. And it's a reflection truly of Lori and I as people, and really what we want to be in the world, and encourage, we always talk about, we'd be disappointed if we did not kind of nurture the next wave of entrepreneurs within our company. Like, we're hopeful. Like, we recently had someone leave our business. She's a grad student and she had to focus on her last semester at school. And the last 10 minutes of her resignation call, when she was telling Laura and I she was moving on because she needed to focus on her schooling, we said, we brainstormed her business and what she would do next. And we were so excited. We're like, Sarah, you always have a home at Somersault, but when you're ready and you want to start a business, we see so much potential in you, and we'd love to help you along that journey. So I think contributing to society comes on multiple different levels. At Somersault, we can sometimes do things on a large scale. Like, I'm very proud of the donations we made last year. We donated $100,000 to Forward Through Ferguson and Color of Change. We've also done a lot of work for helping, we've donated a lot of suits to women in need. So really thinking about how we can contribute on a larger scale, but also hopefully contribute day to day to our team, and hopefully growing the next wave of incredible entrepreneurs within our company as well.
I love that you're taking people on their journey as well, and that you have this passion for helping people, helping the community. Truly remarkable. I've got some quick fire questions for you now, Reshma. Are you ready? Okay. We'll see how many we can get to before Robbie throws us, Robbie mutes us, because I know that the participants have got lots of questions for you. Number one, Reshma, what keeps you up at night?
Oh my gosh, I'm an absolute perfectionist, so I've tried to let go of that. So really focusing on the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves. So sometimes that keeps me up at night. Am I doing enough of the must-haves and, making sure I'm not focusing too much on the nice-to-haves and letting go of that perfection. So I think that keeps me up at night because I have too much to do. So quick decision-making.
3 actions for budding entrepreneurs would be ...
Read a lot, like research your industry of what you want to do a lot. Get a great internship, try to find someone you can learn from and spend time with. And the third is like pay attention to trends. I hate to admit it, but I'm very proud of it. I spend too much time on TikTok, and it's important because that is what is the platform of the moment. And yes, I'm probably too old to be on that platform, but it's really important to stay up to date. So don't be afraid to be on anything new that's coming. I think we stay relevant by staying at the forefront of what's happening in technology. And that is really important. And you learn so much about entrepreneurship, pop culture, what's happening in the world through those platforms. So don't be afraid of them.
In 5 years, Reshma will be
traveling the world a lot more, I hope. I love to travel, and this last year has not been the most fun and exciting from a travel perspective. So, I hope in 5 years I'll be doing what I'm doing now, which is growing Somersault with Lori, with just a lot more travel mixed in.
a book we should all read is?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough one because I have to admit, I haven't had the chance to read a book in a very, very, very long time.
You read this one, right?
I did read that one. I actually have there are 2 amazing Harvard professors. They have an incredible book that I'll put in I'm going to start reading it today. I had an amazing opportunity to speak to them, and it's all about leadership. So I think that's the next one on my list.
Book on leadership. I love it. Last question. It's teeing up Robbie. So Robbie's ready. So last question for you, Reshma. If you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere in the world with anything on it, it would say what?
Everybody is a somersault body.
Reshma, it has been an absolute delight speaking with you.
Thank you so, so much. What wonderful questions. And we have to continue our cricket conversation sometime soon.
I am ready. Thanks for your time, Reshma. Over to you, Robbie.
Well, we've got several good questions. Peter, give me a thumbs up, or Reshma, give me a thumbs up if I can be heard better now. We have got a question about the different reading materials out there, and someone asks, what is a recommendation on how to license a product? Do you have a book or a resource on licensing?
No, I don't, but I'm working on a licensing deal right now. And so I'm kind of learning as I go and figuring that out one step at a time. And it really depends on what you're doing. In this case, we're licensing prints to put on our swimwear. And it's a really fun collaborative experience. So I don't have any resources that I would direct you to, exactly, but Google is my best friend. You would think that, entrepreneurs might know what they're doing, or sometimes we don't. We're just figuring it out like the rest of everyone else. And that's one of the ones that I'm working through right now.
Thanks for that. That is an excellent answer. Our next question comes about what lessons did you learn in financing your business that might be useful for other rising entrepreneurs seeking to finance business ventures?
Oh my gosh, you learn so much about fundraising, but if I'm being completely honest, I haven't been in the dating world for a long time, but fundraising is like dating. You have to play a little hard to get. You have to play the game a little bit, and you need to know your materials, know your numbers inside and out, know your business inside and out, and make sure you're telling the story about the business you want to build as opposed to the business you have at this very moment. It's really about painting that picture of where the business can go. But it is a little bit like dating. Play a little hard to get, don't respond to emails right away. Very hard for me to do, but I'm like a respond right away kind of person, but you learn a little bit to kind of hold back and, work the system a bit.
So how do you succeed then in getting investors in small markets versus the more major markets, like let's say St. Louis versus New York City?
Yeah, so we've raised money in St. Louis, New York, San Francisco, Salt Lake City, you name it. St. Louis is probably a tougher market given that we don't have as much understanding of the I guess, venture business here in St. Louis. They have some amazing funds, like Cultivation Capital is an incredible fund. But when we're thinking about venture funds or angel investments, I really think it's about finding the people who understand your industry, as opposed to just trying to find anyone with capital. So really thinking about people who, in our case, understood retail, understood e-commerce, understood apparel. Those businesses are usually very, very different than a software business, or very different than a CPG business.
Fascinating stuff. On to the employee focused side of things. In fact, either of you would be welcome to answer this. What skills and characteristics do you seek out when you're hiring new employees? What are you looking for?
So we're looking for an entrepreneurial marker. So when we think about that, we want to hire people who have that entrepreneurial spirit, which basically means let's figure this out. So whether you are, head of operations, whether you are creative director, whether you are head of product development, we want people with that entrepreneurial marker who can figure stuff out. And that means just getting in there, taking control of a situation, and moving it to the next level.
And so if those employees are highly technical, or if they have some other quality, are there other things that you seek out that are also really valuable to you?
So I think, of course, you want someone, if you're hiring for a particular role, you want them to have that skill set. You want them, like if we're hiring a developer, we want them to have that skill set. I know Roz is on this call. She was my professor, and Cecily, her daughter, is on our team, which is so, so fun. And she's doing an incredible job. And so we're looking for people, of course, with their skill set. So if it's a developer, we want to make sure she understands her programming software and all of the other things that come with her job. But we're also looking for people who are curious and positive and can do. I think we're very much a team that is moving the ship together in the same direction. And that's what we look for.
In terms of those other qualities, do you think things like grit and perseverance can be taught, or how does someone acquire those if they don't see themselves that way?
I mean, I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that I wasn't very ambitious, or didn't have much, I don't think, perseverance in school at all till I got to, I think, 11th grade. So I think it's something in my case that I developed and I honed over time, and figured out more and learned more about myself and became more self-aware. I figured out what I wanted and really focused on that. So I hope people can develop those skill sets, because I think I did.
Peter, with you as an educator, what would be your answer to that question?
Yeah, it's $1 million question, isn't it? But you definitely it can be developed. There's no doubt about it. And it's developed through giving kids experiences where they are going to have to dig deep. And excuse me, that's what I enjoy about Principia at the moment, with our character education trips, where every year students go on outward bound trips. Plus the fact that they are doing some challenging projects at school too. And so that feedback that we're giving the students and that the peers are giving them is not always just, oh, good job, A+, off you go, but it's really constructive feedback and helping students look at where they are, where could I be, and building onto that versus just giving up. So it's about experiences, it's about feedback, and it's about opportunities for young people to grow and develop into resilient young men and women.
I love what you said, Peter, because it's putting you outside your comfort zone, right? When you are either on a trip or in a place you don't know, or having to do a project that you may not have experience with, or with people you don't know, it's kind of pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. And every time any of us do that, we learn a little bit about ourselves, a little bit about how to deal with the world in a better way. And I think that's really, really important.
To jump on that, Reshma, you're now running an international company. How much time do you think you spend in the uncomfortable zone versus perhaps the comfortable zone?
I mean, it's all kind of in the uncomfortable zone, right? Like if you think about it, it's like I'm doing, like my no day is the same. I'm learning something every day that's different. Everything is a giant experiment. Every single thing is a giant experiment. There's no direct answer. There's no exact playbook. Because I think most of everything is, I think where Lori and I both are confident and comfortable in the unexpected and the uncomfortable, if that makes sense. So you're constantly just trying to figure it out and innovating as you go, and really leaning on your skill set and what you know, and then feeling it out through thoughtful strategy, data, and making sure you can make those thoughtful decisions.
And Reshma, I love what you've said there, because you've basically kind of written an overview for what a future-ready curriculum ought to look like.
Yep.
It's authentic. It's challenging. Too often we steal the challenge from young people. It has to be challenging. It's engaging. It's real world, and most importantly, it's open-ended. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is to a new approach to making and designing swimsuits and selling them. I don't know what it is, but I've got to move through this process and be iterative and build my ideas and look back and go into the weeds again, whatever it might be. And that's what our curriculum needs to look like as well. Open-ended, real world.
Iterative is a really good way to look at it and think about it. Is you're constantly iterating. The company we were, even though outwardly might look the same or look like we're just expanding, we have iterated so much on the back end to completely think through more thoughtful operations or more streamlined fulfillment or more thoughtful packaging. There's constant iterations. Just because, I always tell the team, just because someone has done it some way or they've always done it that way doesn't mean we have to do it that way. And just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean we have to continue doing it that way. So I think it's interesting to kind of iterate not only on what other people have done, but on what you've done in the past, because a week from now, our business could be very different. And that was really kind of showcased through COVID, and how you react to kind of a global shift in the way the world views each other and COVID and travel. And so again, constant iteration is key.
And I'm so fascinated when you say that you're kind of the perfectionist, and yet you know that as an entrepreneur, you're putting out products and ideas that aren't quite complete. So, sorry, Robbie, quick question there. Like, how does that jive with you?
No, I mean, I think you want to put product out there that it's the best that it possibly can be in this given moment. And I think when you think about that is, and that goes for when we launch a new feature on the site, could I fuss with it till it is 100% right and adjust every button a pixel here and a pixel there? I could, but that would mean so many less people have the joyful opportunity to shop Somersault, right? Because I was fussing over a pixel placement of a button or text. And so really thinking about the opportunity cost of those kind of decisions that can kind of stagnate you or trap you. And that makes the decision making much easier, right? Like, what is the benefit of pushing it out there? What is the benefit of putting a product out there that's absolutely exceptional and better than the rest, maybe not exactly where you want it to be yet. And that goes for physical product, digital product, experiences. We're just always, we go back at Somersault to saying we are not perfect. We're continuously striving to be better. And I think that open, authentic approach to product development, we take feedback from our consumers, whether they want more butt coverage or they want more long torso. We heard about long torso every single day. I didn't even know like it was something that people considered in their swimwear shopping experience. And we added that to the assortment, but we didn't wait day one to have everything we possibly could have. We iterated along the way and continue to do so.
Fantastic.
In terms of iteration, how do you avoid chasing after perhaps the shiny new object, which will probably always be out there, and yet remain focused on perhaps either the aspects of building the business or your tried and true?
I think it's just being true to your strategy. Lori and I are very strategic. So we know what this business is going to be. We know where we're headed. So it's much easier to say, okay, that doesn't matter because it doesn't meet our strategy. Or, hey, that's something that's not important right now because it's not part of the strategy of where we want to go. So I think having a strong strategic foundation, that does not mean that you know all the answers. That means you know where you want to go. And then that way you can measure things that might fall outside of that and understand that they may not be a priority. So we make those kinds of decisions every day. There's not enough hours in the day. So prioritization and sticking to strategy.
And also, Reshma, you've got such clarity around your mission. That's got to help.
Clarity around mission and clarity around our consumer and who we're speaking to. But not, I think many businesses struggle because they have a product, but they don't know who to sell it to, or they think that a particular audience wants a product that doesn't fit. So that product market fit is incredibly important. It also helps that we are a reflection of our audience. So it makes it much easier to think about kind of what she might want or what she might like. But we know what we're doing and we know who we're doing it for. We just continue to give her more options, better product, better assortment. Like this year, we're thinking about how do we give every single woman something that they can shop for from Somersault when it comes to swimwear. So we didn't have too many skimpy styles, but if we want to really be inclusive and make sure that women can find what they're looking for, we have to broaden our product assortment to give more women more of what they want.
This goes back to the employee side of things. It is mentioned in the second to last chapter of this book that being kind to employees is relevant. So what were your thoughts on that? And how do you think about being kind to the employees you have?
Oh, absolutely. I think kindness goes a long way, but we also believe in direct feedback, because I think when you stew on feedback, it tends to get emotional, like, oh my God, she did this or that one did that. So we're very much about, hey, next time let's try this or let's not do that. So we're really about thoughtful and kind and direct feedback. And I think that's an important conversation because we're not about tiptoeing around people doing things better or giving insight, but we always deliver that with thoughtfulness and kindness. And I think in a year when everyone's going through a lot on the back end, we don't know what's happening in people's homes or their households with their kids. We've really taken an approach of really being understanding there. We have lots of dogs join our meetings, cats, babies, kids. Sometimes kids will just jump in and scream and, or say hi or want to say hi in the middle of a meeting. And that's just okay. We really need to think about, Peter, to your point, staying to the times of what's happening. I think if you had said 2 years ago that there would be kids joining meetings, we'd all have said that's so unprofessional, right? Yeah. But now the world is a completely different place. And we know that people are juggling childcare and animal care and people not feeling well in their homes. And so we just need to be a lot more understanding, both to our teams and knowing that our customers are dealing with those same things in their homes, and everyone is a little bit graded from the experiences of the last year. So just being kinder all around. We always talk about disarming with kindness with, if a customer emails and says, oh my God, where is my swimsuit? We always talk about how do we disarm her with kindness and make sure we can make her happy.
Well, the power of the consumer now with social media is such that as much as you can create raving fans, in an instant, things can turn, as you said.
Absolutely.
So the building of being kind to customer and to your people becomes so critical now, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And then also, just having those open conversations. And I think we see a lot of businesses putting themselves on a pedestal, and then it's much, it's easier to fall down. So just being really authentic and open and talking through it. And, we had a lot of instances this year where everyone had to have really, really tough conversations, both with their consumers and with their teams, and just continuing to be open and taking feedback, I think is really important.
Since we are right at 8 o'clock, I'll ask one more question, but to conclude before asking Reshma this last little question, thanks to everyone for being with us tonight. We hope you'll join us for 4 activities coming in February. We have the book club pick, A Gentleman in Moscow. We've got a virtual Acorn play date. If you have little ones, we hope you'll see us there. Then we also have a talk on Brexit coming up all in February, including our Monitor Night Live, the annual event. This is the 20th year. Finally, there will be a continuation of our entrepreneurial events such as this one, a conversation with Lewis Howes, college alum of 2005, coming on February 18th at 8:30 p.m. To see all of Reshma's good work, visit somersault.com. That's summer like the season and salt like the food.
The condiment,
Somersault.com. And so, Reshma, to close, given that we're an educational institution, if you were sitting in front of a sea of 22-year-olds about to graduate college, what would you tell them?
Oh, good question. I would say don't be afraid of hard work. I think that sometimes it's very easy to quote unquote want balance and all of those wonderful things, which I think is also very important, but hard work goes a long way. And I would just say, don't be afraid of just putting in the work, because you will see the rewards. It doesn't happen overnight.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much and have a delightful rest of your evening. Thank you, Reshma and
Thank
Peter.
you.
Thanks, Reshma. Thanks, Robbie.
Thank you very much.